Hello and welcome to the Engineer Exchange, a podcast where we exchange experiences, insights and knowledge with experts in the industry.
Today we'll be talking all things town and urban planning and how we can make the UK's cities happier and healthier for generations to come.
I'm Alex.
And I'm Hayley.
And we're joined by three guests today. I will let them introduce themselves. We'll start with you, Anna, and then we'll just make our way down.
Okay, I'm Anna Rose. I'm the head of the Planning Advisory Service at the Local Government Association. We go around to local councils and help build capability and capacity in planning teams. I think that sums it up, really.
Yeah. Perfect.
Hi, I'm Neale. I'm a chartered town planner. I've worked in local authorities for about 20 years before coming to Waterman Aspen as an area manager for the town planning team.
And I'm Vince Mandeir. I'm a divisional director at Waterman Aspen and I have a national remit for diversifying our business into the town planning sector.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so we'll start with a statistic. According to the Royal Town Planning Institute, approximately 2.7 million people in the UK do not have a publicly accessible local park or green space within a 10-minute walk of their home. And this is especially common in deprived areas.
So how do planners balance the need for green spaces with the practical needs of a growing population? We'll start with you, Anna.
Yeah, so I think this is much easier on a greenfield site for obvious reasons, that you can plan it in at the beginning and you can make way for green areas and sufficient green spaces for everybody. Where it's harder is in existing built-up areas, so in cities where you're having to retrofit green areas alongside development. How we do that well is probably by seeing gross development areas rather than net development areas. And just to explain that a little bit, it's about including all the land that would be required for the development, not just the profitable land. So in housing sites, the profitable land is just where you can build homes. Mm-hmm. If I was talking about site development, you would include all of the areas, so floodplains, steep sites, anything that couldn't accommodate houses as well as the area that accommodated houses. What that does, it focuses the attention really on green spaces and not just built development. Which means that you can start to build a case for green areas, whereas that's very difficult if you do it on profit first.
Okay.
What do you think, Eva?
Okay, so I think planners have a really difficult job. As you've mentioned, there's so many different factors that they need to balance. Green space is just one of those factors, along with flood risk and ecology and all sorts of other things. I do think since COVID and the mental health agenda, then there's been more of a push to provide green space parks for that mental health and well-being. And I do think that they also bring communities together as nice social spaces for people. In terms of, Anna mentioned it's very difficult to retrofit, and I definitely agree with that. But I also think that in perhaps some of the deprived areas where new developments do come in, that can be beneficial for those deprived areas, because then they do have access to parks, green spaces as part of those new developments. So I think that's perhaps one way that existing areas can benefit from new development.
I think the difficulty is, certainly in deprived areas, is finding space to put those parks in. And I think planning authorities and what have you, and developers should be looking at brownfield sites that are unused, however big or small they are, so that they can create pocket parks within those communities. If you've got an area of land that's lying dormant and not being used and is overgrown, why not make some use of it? And a pocket park doesn't have to be grass and flowers. You can do community allotments and anything like that, just to bring the community together.
Do they often get the community involved in things like that? Asking what would a community want to see in that space of land that's lying dormant?
Yeah, and actually that probably happens more in deprived areas than it does in affluent areas. So it's the one, I suppose, benefit, certainly in the public sector, where you've got housing owned by the council, then the consultation and the engagement with tenants is much better. So you're more likely to get that, and actually pocket parks are quite often seen in areas and on an interim basis. So they don't always have to be permanent either, which is quite interesting. I suppose on that though is how we view green space. So in the planning system, it's really technical. So it has to be a type of open space to register as an open space. So probably in that stat is a miscalculation, because it's basically going to be whether you're near something that we would see as a park or an open space.
Is that a certain size of space?
Well, it isn't. No, it's just that it meets a requirement that's in the planning system. So a lot of research has been done, and housing amenity space isn't counted. So those bits of grass on the edge of estates that people play, kids play on, all of that sort of stuff, that when you ask tenants, they would say that's really important to me. That wouldn't be counted in that stat. Verges that kids roll down. That's not counted in that stat. So I think there's also a need to look at as what's calculated in terms of that data. What do we see as green space? Because for me, public open space is usable space, and that could include all of these bits and bobs of space, and they're multifunctional rather than just serving, so serving one purpose is a play park with a slide. You can't really do a lot else in there. Serving lots of purposes might be a little bit of woodland, or one of those, patches of green, as round by my grandparents in Coventry, we had loads of greens, and they were serving more than one purpose. So that might be another way of doing it. Is repurposing.
It's not just about the kids, then, is it? It's
about
families.
everybody.
If someone is living in a perhaps deprived area and they would like to see more green spaces, pocket parks, how would they go about do they raise it with the council? Do they raise it with the local MP, or how would they raise that as like an issue in the community?
I suppose, if you're a council tenant, then you could definitely raise it through the council. If you're in a deprived area with no council ownership, then you're looking at getting yourself into a group. So community activism is really powerful, because that's the voting public.
Yes.
I think there's nothing more powerful than a community group getting together. So if we take a developer or a community.
Absolutely. And I was just going to say neighbourhood plans as well, that's very community focused. So they've come in over the last few years for communities, and it's for that purpose as well. It's very much for their area. What do they want to see in that area? And I think green open space is part of that.
What about things like SUDs and biodiversity? How can modern developers integrate things like that, and sustainable materials without compromising functionality or budget, and where does that sit in the list of priorities?
It's very much there at the fore. I mean, SUD's design is implemented into lots of new housing developments and industrial commercial developments as well now. And I think as the years have gone on, certainly when I was getting my hands dirty working in the industry, SUDS was very new concept around that time. Perhaps giving my age away a little bit now. But now, you see planning applications being submitted by developers, and they have much more emphasis on sustainable urban drainage systems. And there's whole careers being built on that. People have expertise in that, and they look at the planting that goes around that to attract wildlife into those areas. But obviously SUDs are there to capture surface water, so there is an element of danger as well. So you have to be a little bit careful that they're not easily I'm trying to word this, not easily accessible, because you won't want people falling in to a SUD system, but equally you want them to be able to enjoy the SUD system as well. So design is very important.
I worked for a local authority where we actually implemented a climate change checklist for developers, and it wasn't just for housing or major new developments, it was for little extensions or homeowners as well, so sort of the major things and then all the way down to sort of more minor things. And there was a number of things on that checklist that developers, they had to provide as part of new developments. So I think that was kind of very good practice. You don't see it in every authority, but that particular authority had a big push for sort of the climate change and becoming net zero. And I think that's a really good way for developers. They know what they need to provide, and it's best practice. So yeah, it's just one example of something that I've worked on.
You need a lot of collaboration though. On sustainable urban drainage, you need the architects to be talking to the engineers and the urban designers about how it fits into a development and how it's designed and how it's put together, but more importantly how it's accessible to the public as well. So you need that collaboration between all those parties so that so that what is produced is fit for purpose and functional.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can, I think biodiversity net gain is really helpful in this respect. So previous to biodiversity net gain coming in, the councils and developers would have to both be willing in order to make that happen. Whereas biodiversity net gain sort of forces the issue. So everybody has to look at green first, and in order to get their application through. So it's sort of, in some ways we look at carrots, don't we? So you're making a better place, your houses are more profitable. That's your reason for doing that. And then on the other side, it's the stick, which is you're not getting your planning permission unless you do this. Yeah. So the two come together, don't they? Yeah. And I think that's where I see it, is that there was always good practice. I've worked on quite a number of schemes where you've got SUDs built into the green infrastructure. There's usable spaces around those SUDs. It's all quite safe, but it's fulfilling a number of purposes and makes it a really good place to live. But that only happened because it was a good developer. Yeah, on the other hand, there are going to be schemes now that are going to be infinitely better because they're having to do it.
Yeah.
And that's the difference, isn't it?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We'll move on now. We're going to talk a little bit about well-being and how to make happy and healthy cities. So what makes a city or development feel happy and healthy to live in? And how can this be measured and designed for?
Yeah. I think this is at the root of probably every planning agenda, although most people wouldn't recognise that. So, if you think about how we design places, I always start with access to green and blue infrastructure. So I've done some pretty big sites, I've done some big plans, and I start with the green and blue and build in the built-in development to it. Because what we know is that access to nature, access to amenities, clean air, the aesthetic appeal of places is really important to people. And it's really important to people no matter what their wealth point is. Mm-hmm. And it sort of becomes more of a necessity the lower your wealth point is, but it's no less important to you. And so I think it's, community and social connections, really important. Social equity. So can we say that development serves everybody at the same level? Could you do this at your ability level? Could you do this at your age? Could you do this at your wealth point? And for me, and the research sort of supports this, that's what makes a happy and healthy place. And you can sort of feel that personally, can't you?
Yeah.
That if you feel that you've got the same opportunities as everybody else, you're a lot happier.
So truly inclusive.
Truly inclusive.
Yeah, it's quite hard to do though, isn't it, that? I think it takes a lot of thinking about.
It really does. And some of the best design places aren't very equal.
Yes.
And so, there's some of the places that are held to be really wow, and, we all go walking around them as planners. You don't, there's a lot of Waitrose and a lot of David Lloyd and not a lot of anything else. Yeah. And there's a demographic issue there, isn't there? Because are we serving everybody at the same point? So this is, that's probably a personal bugbear of mine, but I think if you're going to be happy and healthy, actually the Quality of Life Foundation, all sorts of research have been done to say that social equity is really important.
It's access to nature, I think.
Yeah.
You know, people that are out in clean air have access to nature and good connectivity so that they can walk to these places or cycle to these places. You know, I'm talking like a transport planner now, which is my background. But I think that's the important thing is it's just access to nature and being out in clean air, really.
And I think feeling safe as well in the community. I think safety is a big issue
Very
for people.
important, yeah.
Definitely green space, but that kind of safety, areas where children can go and play just safely, and the parents know it's just a nice, safe environment for them to be. And that community as well, that sense of community, so community facilities or areas where the community can get together and have that kind of social side of things.
What about like accessibility to amenities and services? Because I live in a fairly newish building. It's about 9 years old. I was part of the first phase. The second phase was sort of done just up the hill, like behind this other building. And what they did is they closed off the footpath as they were building these new houses. But then there were vulnerable residents in our on our estate that couldn't then walk to the shops because there was only one entrance and exit out of the estate, and it meant that they had to go all the way down the estate, round, and then through another estate rather than just walking up through the top. And it was I think lots of people contacted our local MP, and then they had to address it, and they opened up the footpath again, which was great. But yeah, like what happens when those sorts of issues like crop up? I'll start with you, Eva.
Accessibility is one of my bugbears. So there's so many new developments, especially in my area, and they're just not accessible. You see exactly that issue. You can't walk anywhere safely, or footpaths just end. And I think there really needs to be a much greater emphasis on almost forcing developers to make sure these developments are accessible for everybody. And it's not just necessarily about getting to facilities, it's about just being able to get around, generally. And it's quite, there has been a big push, I think, for like sustainable new towns and that kind of thing. But I think if we're going to have these sustainable new towns, they've got to be accessible to even some of the smaller surrounding villages or facilities, not just isolated. So it's getting better, but there's still, in my opinion, a lot of work to be done to make these developments truly accessible. I think part of the problem is that they build in phases, particularly for massive developments.
Well, this is what happened with our
So
one,
then
because,
they'll get people moving in because they don't want homes unoccupied. But the actual infrastructure is coming much later on down the line. So potentially that accessibility is going to be there, but it's going to be there in about 10 years time, further down the line, but people have already moved in. And there have been examples where children, for example, going to school, the school's not open, so they're then having to go to school that's like 3 or 4 miles away. So you're getting in the car to go to school, so then that kind of, for me, the whole sustainability issue.
Yeah,
kind of
point.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's part of the problem, and I'm not sure in terms of what we can do about it.
Have some ideas of what, so there are places that work better than others. And, if you can do an infrastructure first sort of policy and financing system, then actually that gets rid of a lot of those problems. I suppose I was director at Milton Keynes for a few years, and, that's just a different approach where you've got all of your kit in first before you put the people in. It gets away from a lot of this issue. Also, one of the sites I did in Rugby, Halton, we made a real effort with the developer to put the road and the primary school in and have, some facilities on there before we move people on there. And it's just thinking a little bit ahead, but some of the I share your bugbear around, but it's all to do with ownership.
Yeah.
You know, so you get dead ends where one owner stops and the next one starts. As the public, we shouldn't be able to see ownership. You know, that doesn't make any sense at all in placemaking, does it?
No.
But you get dead ends, you get, you know, awkward sidings, and, you know, it's really bad for urban design, but it really is to do with ownership. So for me, it's about the agreements that happen at the planning stage around how we're going to work together, how we're going to have Section 106 agreements that ensure that you don't get those breaks between ownership and the phases, so that they do work together. They don't create those dead ends and things. It's difficult, but it's not impossible. And Section 106 agreements are about much more than money. They're about doing things as well.
It almost doesn't seem fair that you're allowed to build 1,000 houses, but then the school comes after. That almost doesn't seem right.
I think though on schools you either get it one way or the other. So you either have an empty school that the whole area then decides to send their kids to, so then there's no room for the people who move in on the site, or you have no school and then all the children from the site go to a different school and overcrowd that.
It's hard to choose.
It really is really difficult, and I think that sites go one or the other way. I think it's better to provide it up front and with growth room. So really, with a school, particularly a primary school, you should have the ability to stretch and contract in terms of the capacity, so that you've got a bit, So in schools, there's children can walk upstairs or go in lifts. So we don't go up a lot in this country.
That is
really
very true,
weird,
actually.
isn't it?
Primary schools, they're all on one level, aren't they?
Children are quite mobile, I've heard.
They might
So there's a bit of scope maybe to do that, but I do think there's also an issue. Vince was saying about his age earlier. I think I'm going to out myself as well, but I lived through the last dip in child numbers. And we were closing schools, and so we've got another one coming. So we're looking in about 5 years at a real dip in 18-year-olds, and we're going to have so universities are already looking at that, and so the school sector, and so it's future planning as well. What do we do with that space? And that's why I'm saying it needs to be able to contract as well as expand, because it's not always going to be the same capacity. And what we don't want is last time we sold off all our schools and then found out that we needed them. That really, we should have learnt from that, really.
It's like legacy planning. That's planning for generations to come, rather than a quick win. And then how do you balance that with budgets and time for deadlines?
And that's exactly the role of a town
Well, you're in a very
planner.
hard job, guys. That's
Absolutely.
Especially because also the requirements to build more houses. You would imagine that those schools will be required because there'll be more houses being built. But then if the birth rate is lower and there aren't as many people with children in those houses, then that is a difficult thing to balance, isn't it?
And like the Education Authority, they'll have a limit on however many homes that is kind of, you need to provide this many homes to then get a primary school on this site, or a secondary school. It's even more homes. And there was always a big debate about what the minimum sort of number of homes should be for a new development. Is it better to go larger because actually you're going to get more infrastructure on there, or do you kind of do this 2,000, 3,000 homes, which is unlikely to get any infrastructure? So there's all of those kind of things as well that go on behind the scenes. And like GP surgeries, that was always another another kind of controversial
thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Obviously, you'll meet someone who can say, "Oh, I can never get in at my doctor's, and I can't find an NHS dentist," and all these kind of things. So you will always get that, won't you?
Yeah, and it's different systems. So there's different languages. Planning is its own particular language, and the health system it could be anything. So you're talking different language, different time scales.
Absolutely. It's really difficult.
But that's where strategic planning comes in.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking about things at that level into the future, you should be able to take account of demographic changes, all of the, so the green and blue infrastructure, the utility needs, all of the things at the moment that are really short term.
Yeah.
We should be able then to say, well, look, let's have a future glance over it. What does it look like? right, this is what we need to provide. And also it'll build in, hopefully, that flexibility that we're now seeing that we need.
So yeah, we've talked obviously a bit about sort of accessibility. But are there any standout developments in the UK that you can name, or any that you've worked on that sort of spring to mind with regards to like accessibility or inclusivity?
I can. There's one when we go to London to visit our stepdaughter, the King's Cross regeneration development at the back of King's Cross station is absolutely fantastic, and we thoroughly enjoyed. She lives in Islington, so not a million miles away.
What's it called that? I think I've been there.
Is it the coal yard?
Yard,
Yeah,
yeah.
something like that. Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it is.
And for a brownfield site, which was a former coal yard for the trains that lay dormant for years, big warehouses, an industrial area, and it's just been regenerated into a very trendy area. Lots of shops, lots of bars, and cafes and things like that. And it's just a lovely place to walk around.
Yeah. And in an area, so London obviously has an awful lot of things going on. In an area where you've got so many choices, it's still made something that's really like useful. And every time I've been there, it's been very busy.
Yeah. Bristol and Glasgow. Glasgow's doing a lot of inner city redevelopment at the moment, north of the border, which seems to... Are they a city of culture this year, or?
Oh, I don't know.
Sure.
Is that Glasgow? I can't...
Funnily enough, I've got Bristol down on my
Oh, have you?
list of
There
good
you go.
times here, so
Yeah.
there you go.
And of course, obviously, you know, the Dutch effect, you know, Copenhagen and places like that, they're just renowned for their accessibility and how well they integrate.
The active travel and all that, all that sort of stuff that's with the junctions that people are bringing in, the Cyclops type junctions. Aren't
Yeah.
So there's a lot of those in Manchester.
I was in Amsterdam recently, well, a couple of months ago,
that's
and it was just
so good.
like you would walk up the stairs, and then they've got this little like rail for like your bike, so you're walking up the stairs, and then you can like just have your bike on the side. And I just thought,
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
that's like
good.
It's so cool.
There's also that, can everybody access it? You know, so, you know, when you think of places, can everybody access it? You know, coming back to Milton Keynes again, you've got a whole cycleway network all the way round that doesn't touch a road, you know?
Wow.
So you could take your kids on that, no fear of any danger from doing that. You can go all around the city on your bike. You can, you know, waterways as well, lakes where you can do activities, those sorts of things. I think, you know, so in terms of a new town, the thinking behind that is that you can get by without a private vehicle. In that sense. The one most recently, and Eva, you'll know about this, but Halton is designed in the same way. So you can get around Halton by foot or cycle and wheelchair. You know,
Amazing.
you can get around all of the way around it. You can get into the main town without using your private car, you know. So there's all of that, but it's also the access to the facilities. It's all free.
Yeah, that's cool.
So, you know, so there's a brilliant park. Obviously, everybody can go there. They can all use that. But there's also like little exercise tracks. There's all sorts of little walkways and things like that. So it's just who can access it as well, isn't
Like
it?
I said before, though, it's a lot easier to do that in a new town or new development, and a lot more difficult in places like London, where
of course it is.
it's already built. It's hundreds of years old. The tube system, for example, is super old, isn't it? And
Well, and also that conflict between heritage
Yes.
and accessibility.
Yeah.
You know, think of York.
yes, cobbled streets.
Yeah,
and
you'd find it hard, wouldn't you, to sort of make that.
history.
Yeah, it's
very difficult.
Very good point.
it's really hard, isn't it? So which one do you go with? It's
Well, like I live in Leeds, and obviously there's a huge thing going on at the moment about whether with the West Yorkshire County Authority getting a mass transit system, and you know Tracy Bravin, the mayor, like you know there's budget's been announced for funding, and it's really like everyone's obviously it's like a hot topic at the moment. But people are saying, well, where is this tram going to go? And also people are saying, oh, for years we've been wanting a tram and it's never gone through. So people don't truly believe that this is actually going to happen, which is really interesting. I'm like hopeful.
I think it's got
We'll
to.
see.
hasn't
It has to,
It's got
for sure.
to.
Yeah.
Something like very light rail
Yeah.
or something similar.
Yeah.
Tram system has got to
Definitely.
happen because it's
too
pushing
big,
too far
too
behind
much.
in Leeds, isn't it?
Yeah, very far
Yeah,
behind.
I mean, we've got electric buses, haven't we,
Yeah.
in most places now. So you've got in the cities, you can get an electric bus. The next step is a tram, isn't it?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this leads quite nicely into the next question. So, according to Fleet News, in 2022, the UK witnessed a 200% increase in micro-mobility rides, such as e-scooters and e-bikes. I've seen them a lot around Nottingham, and again, they've got in Leeds now as well. How are concepts like mobility as a service transforming our cities, and where is the UK on that journey?
You-
Oh,
go, Eva.
everyone's. Well, I'm not going to talk about e-bikes and e-scooters specifically, but one example of where I think technology, or as we were just talking about these tram systems, springs to mind is Coventry, because they've just introduced this very light rail system, which is fantastic, and it's getting an awful lot of sort of interest from not just the UK, but also internationally as well. So I think they've been really innovative there in introducing this, and I can see that really being rolled out or trialled in other cities as well.
I actually went on Friday.
Did
I actually
you?
went to
Oh, no.
Coventry.
What was it like?
Oh, it was unbelievable. It was
special
great.
ride on the
I
tram,
went on a
did
special ride on the new tram. It was so good. And we got like a private journey on it. It was great.
I think it's fantastic.
Privileged. though.
Honestly, I felt like such a VIP. It was great.
I think it's really good, and I think we will start to see more of those concepts moving forwards. I think in terms of providing sort of cycling lanes specifically for these like e-bikes, well, bikes generally, I think again there's still a lot of work to be done there. One of the things I always get is, well, no one cycles, but if we had safe infrastructure, I think we'd encourage more people
Absolutely.
to cycle.
Yeah.
So it's one of those
You have to put it in
situations.
place.
We talked about this in the
Absolutely.
last
In our
podcast.
last podcast, we did a school streets and active travel one. If it's not in place, then it's never going to get used.
Yeah.
Is it? People's
Exactly.
mindsets are not going to change, so it has to be put in place. Then people will start using them. And I know, obviously, there's a huge. It causes division, doesn't it? Because it takes up road space.
Absolutely.
And, you're having to. It costs a lot of money digging up the road and taking up the road space, and people less parking and all that kind of stuff. But unfortunately, it's important for the future. So those people are going to have to change their mindsets, aren't they? Unfortunately, we'll get people who push back on it all the time. But you've got to change their mindset.
I think it's about being brave sometimes and just going for it.
Yeah.
That's my view on that. And again, I think Coventry is a good example of where they've got quite a few projects going on at the moment in terms of active travel and trying to promote that kind of cycling, walking, wheeling. That's a new concept as well, which is
Wheeling? What's wheeling?
Well, wheeling. This is modes of transport such as people with pushchairs or wheelchairs.
All right, okay.
And yeah, that kind of thing. So it's kind of
Scooters
very
as well,
inclusive
like people,
scooters.
wheel to school on the scooters.
So that's a new concept that has come in.
So looking to the future and things like technology and careers, do you think it's important to involve like younger generations in the current development frameworks? So things like, are we planning for Gen Z, Gen Alpha and beyond, or are we still playing catch up?
I think that if you look at any development process and look who gets engaged in it, it's the wrong end of the age spectrum. So we've got people who have got their own house, will never move, commenting on developments that they will never live in.
Yeah.
And I think that answers your question, really. If you are in need of somewhere to live, then you should get a say, shouldn't you, in where, in what's happening in the development. also, as you age, you move further away from technological advances, new thinking, all of that. I think it's appreciating that. I think, even just in your own house, I have teenagers who know infinitely more than me about a lot of things, not that I'd put it in front of them. But there's, I think that we do need to bring in that thinking, both professionally, but also in terms of who we talk to when we're doing this stuff. I think it's also about jazzing up our professions. So we all stay in the same lane. I'm a planner. Get out of my lane. I'm a surveyor. Get out of my lane. Engineers. It's like it's my club. See you later. So I think there's a need for us to accept that you need everybody.
Yeah.
And
Collaboration.
and that's not traditional thinking.
See, I think there's a missed opportunity in schools. I don't think many younger generation, or much of the younger generation, know anything about planning. I don't think they know who planners are, what they do. Not all, not saying all of the younger ones, but there is quite a few that have never heard of town planning as a profession. So I think we need to get in much younger to kind of raise awareness of town planning and what it means. And then I think if they understand what it means and how important it is, they'll probably become more engaged in the planning process later on. I think at the moment they just don't understand that actually this can fundamentally make a difference to where I live. I can have a say in how I want a community or where I live to look. It's those kind of things, and I think we need to do much more in schools in educating.
We did a STEM event at UTC Berkeley recently, a couple of months ago, and it was Build a Town. And it was absolutely fantastic, and it wasn't just Build a Town. It was a mix of mathematics-based students, IT-based students, and we got the IT students to think about producing a connectivity app for the new community to keep them engaged and informed about what was happening in their local community, and it was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
What a great idea, because I don't even know where to go for information about developments in my local area. You just see a sign that's sometimes put up, or you have to sign up to your MP's local newsletter, which is what I do. But if you could have an app that just maybe sends you some notifications, it's like you're not going out and looking for it, you just get told, and then everyone's more informed. So that's what a great idea.
And it can be little things about which bin to put out on which colour bin to put out on a particular day, because everybody forgets, if you're like me.
Look at your next door neighbour.
Exactly.
That's what I do.
As well. But also, if on the network, on the highway network, if there's been an accident or a road is closed or something like that, just sending a notification out on an app to a community to let them know that there's delays. So take an alternative route or take a little bit more time to get round. And the ideas that the students were coming up with was absolutely fantastic, and they were engaged, they were enthused. And we even had somebody that approached us and said they wanted to become a town planner.
To do the apprenticeship.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So amazing.
And just on that, I was actually just going to say some of the ideas, I think you touched on it as well, Anna, from the younger generation are fantastic. Really, really fantastic ideas that are coming through. So it's really quite exciting.
Just need somebody to listen to them. Don't you?
Yeah.
They need a way to get those out across and an outlet for them.
They're living in a technological world, and the future's only going to go that way. So getting them involved, getting their ideas, it's what we should be doing. It's the way forward.
So going to have one more question on AI, obviously, because everyone's talking about AI at the moment. So the Prime Minister recently announced investment in a new government AI assistant called Extract, which aims to help process planning applications. So he said the new system will help planning officers to, quote, cut red tape, speed up decisions and unlock new homes for hardworking people. What are your thoughts on this? And do you think AI will have an impact on the UK planning sector? Yeah,
I
you
mean,
kick off.
AI is going to have a huge impact on the planning sector,
Yeah.
you know, as it will with everything.
All sectors.
How
Yeah,
we do
sectors.
everything.
Yeah.
You know, it already is, isn't it? You can't look up anything on your phone anymore without that jumping in and telling you the answer. You know, it's infiltrating everything we do. However, I think the announcement concentrated on what planning officers are going to do. I think the real gem here is how much better if we make that available to people making applications, that the pre-app system is going to be vastly quicker, smoother, more accurate, more certainty in it. So I think some of the advantage is not being sold. So I think that it's the flip side to it is if you've got good data but you can't access it and it's taken too long, and Extract is going to help you to do that, then the benefit isn't all on the public sector side. The benefit for me is on all of those applications that never get validated because they're quite frankly rubbish, you know, because they haven't got the right information, they're, you know, lacking things. The access to that, I think, could improve that front end bit no end. So I just wonder if, you know, not that I want a job in MHCLG's PR team, but I just wonder if they've missed a trick in how they're selling this. And I think it's also probably a bit cheeky, but important to remember that planning delivery grant work came in, 2006, something like that. And every council was paid to turn their paper stuff into digital.
Digital. Yeah.
So I'm wondering why councils have still got warehouses full of paper, because we've all been paid like some 20 years ago to do that. So yeah, anyway, that went through my head.
Interesting.
I was like,
that money went elsewhere. maybe.
yeah. Or else we've been creating new paper. Yeah. Maybe that's it. So that's where,
Different political landscape. They all change their minds. AI. I'm a bit of a fossil when it comes to these things. AI, we're all moving to AI, and it is fantastic, and it is great, and it does make a lot of things easier, quicker to get to grips with. But I just fear that we may lose that human decision-making element out of it, and I still think that is vitally important in the planning system, that you still need to have that.
The common sense.
Absolutely, yeah. You know, AI can run algorithms and search the internet to come up with probable decisions, but at the end of the day, you still need somebody, that human interface that knows that local community, knows that local area, and has an understanding of what those local needs are. And that's where the decision needs to be made, not by AI, I think.
No, it's a fair point. I think a lot of people are pretty worried about that, or think similarly to you. So,
What do you think, Eva?
I think it will help, but I don't think it's going to massively improve the planning system as a whole at the moment. I think that needs more investment in terms of more financial, more money coming in from the government. I think they've sold it that AI is going to come in and suddenly make a massive impact on timescales and that kind of thing. And I hadn't really taken into account what you've been saying, Anna, but actually that's a good point. I think they probably have missed something with it, and certainly from speaking to other planners, I think they've kind of said, well, it's not going to solve everything. It's not, it will help, but it's not going to be as big, I think, as it's perhaps being made out to be in terms of impact.
Yeah, it depends also on the stuff going in, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You don't get a good sausage without good meat. And it's like if you've got really good stuff sat in your warehouse, then it's worth getting it digitized, isn't it? If it's not, there's no benefit at all, is there?
Yeah.
You know, so it's only worth what you put in. And I would say that with anything you're looking at in terms of the planning system, that the information and the quality of the information going into the system is so important.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we've just got a few like sort of quick fire questions. So I'll go first. What's your favourite UK city for urban development?
Milton Keynes, love
Bristol.
It's a very biased answer.
Yeah, of course it is.
Milton Keynes. I'd say Glasgow.
Okay.
I think the work they're doing, the regeneration, renewal work is fantastic up there.
Favorite global city for urban development that you've been to?
it. Oslo.
Amsterdam.
Copenhagen.
Oh, okay.
Best innovation in town planning in the last decade?
Public practice.
Smart cities.
No idea. I'm not a town planner.
What's one thing you tell your younger self about working in planning or transport planning for you?
Thank you.
It takes all sorts.
You can make a positive difference.
Collaboration is better than regulation.
Ooh, okay.
And one thing you're most excited about?
The broadening of our profession.
The ideas from the next generation of planners.
I've no idea. I'm not a planner.
Vince isn't excited about anything.
I've done no research.
No, I think climate resiliency, urbanised climate resiliency, I think.
Okay.
Cool.
Because it's something that we need to be looking at.
Yeah. Thank you so much, guys. That's like rounded
Yeah,
up
thank you.
all of our questions. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. That was like a super interesting discussion. And yeah, whether you're a town planner or not, I think everyone will take something away from it in sort of in the built environment world. So yeah, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone who's joined us at home for the Engineer Exchange. Keep an eye out on our YouTube and Spotify channels for more content coming soon. And don't forget to like and subscribe.